Welcome to Still Evolving, where we explore the truth behind lasting performance and resilience. Rather than relying on perfection or superhuman ability, our conversation will highlight how real strength emerges through simple, intentional habits grounded in self-compassion, adaptability, and the ability to grow through life's inevitable setbacks. Today's guest is Rob Sjodahl, a seasoned sales leader with more than 12 years' experience driving revenue, business development, and high-performing teams. Rob began his career as an SDR and worked in his way into senior leadership through disciplined execution, strategic insight, and a real passion for developing people. He now serves as Vice President of Sales at Devsinc, a leading go-to-market strategy, sales operations, and customer engagement. Rob is known for bridging the gap between technical and execution and business outcomes, helping organizations bring complex digital product to life while building scalable sales processes. He brings a grounded, practical perspective on growth, leadership, and resilience. Let's dive in. Please welcome Rob. Awesome, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us on Still Evolving. I'm very grateful for your time and the conversation today. So why don't we start off, if you can jump in and share a little bit about your journey and what you're working on now, and certainly if there's any motivators along the way that propelled you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Amy, thanks for having me on. So Rob Sjodahl, a VP of Sales for Devsinc North America. We are a custom software engineering company building custom software platforms, mobile apps, websites for a plethora of industries and clients, anywhere from the ed tech space into healthcare and fintech down to nonprofits and startups, anywhere in between there too. I started my career journey really right out of high school. I started in sales right out of college, actually, and honestly, was kind of eager to just prove myself. I came from a really hardworking family and always carried this quiet drive to make them proud, to show that their work ethic didn't really stop with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over time, as I got older, the motivation evolved a little bit. I recently got engaged and bought a house up in Massachusetts. And so now my why is about building something that's kind of lasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family, foundation, a life that not only I can be proud of, but my friends and family can be proud of too, and be proud to associate with. And my journey has really been about channeling that inner responsibility into something productive and meaningful, and not just working hard, but working with a purpose, right?
Uh-huh.
So pushing along and really trying to not just work hard, but work smart. Motivators along the way are plentiful in terms of kind of being that underdog or having that resilience. So it's been a long journey in sales, from golf course management and group outings, group bookings in a golf course in Massachusetts here, down to outside sales in the DC area, and kind of working my way up through different industries. Finally, in 2018, landing in the custom software development industry as an SDR, working my way through that, becoming account executive, sales director, and now into VP of sales for about a $35 million company. So it's been a long journey, and
Yeah.
it doesn't happen all at once.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, but happy to be here.
Fantastic. Wow. You mentioned about the motivator, the power of connection, whether it was with your rooted family, like where your upbringing and the value of hard work, the connectivity that you had, not just with them, but the meaning behind how we show up in the world and how we, journey along. But also now the meaning that comes from the new family that you're growing, you're building.
Yes.
And those new connections, the power of connection is so significant, not just to help us thrive, but also in bouncing back from challenge, adversity, the life's punches that certainly we wish we could protect our loved ones from, but it's just
Right.
life. Shit
Yeah.
happens
All too often,
all
every
too
day.
often. So I'm just curious, what's challenging you now in this leadership role, or perhaps lessons learned from adversity in the past, and how have you kind of continued to evolve and keep moving,
Yeah,
growing?
it's a great question. It's a very obviously in a leadership role, it's definitely got different challenges than like an individual contributor role. My entire career I was working as an individual contributor, right? So responsibilities kind of laid on myself. Obviously have a boss, everyone does. Mostly it was, all right, I can control my destiny by putting in the work, working with purpose, and worrying about the sales that I have, the pipeline that I have, and the quota that I have, right? It was very individual, kind of kind of a one team sport, if you will. Even if you do have other salespeople on the team, it's still you can only worry about yourself, right? Working as a sales director, VP of sales now, it's still a quota, but it's everyone else's quota that I have to worry about, including my, I own the entirety, so it at the end of the day it becomes my quota. So it's really about leaving people better than how you found them. If there's anything I can do to help, anything along the way to assist them in their role, not only with coaching and development, but assisting in sales calls, assisting in how to make their process better in terms of prospecting. And at the end of our daily stand-ups, I like to ask, is there anything professionally or personally that you'd like to talk about or like to call out in this meeting? So obviously, we're only human.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, everything professionally is just a job, and we've got families that we care about and hobbies that we care about and things that
Mhm.
we like to do outside of work. So I'd like to obviously empower everyone to be the best salesperson, the best coworker, the best colleague and employee they can be. But also outside of that, if there's anything personal that's bugging them, that can kind of get in the way of work too. So I'd like to be there in both facets.
Mhm.
Of course, as a sales leader or, having a professional relationship, you have to kinda teeter that line of what's professional and what's personal and where we
Yeah.
get into it, but I'd like to at least just make myself available.
Mhm.
And in terms of any setbacks along the way, it's like to try to lead by example in that regard. I know it's kinda cheesy to say, but I've always admired the resilience, that the kind that comes from being underestimated. So I'm a lifelong Boston sports fan, and I look at players like Pedro Martinez, who really didn't fit the typical mold for a dominant pitcher, or Tom Brady, who was sixth round, 199th pick overall, or Dustin Pedroia, who didn't really have like the body for baseball. But these guys, they built legacies and won championships through toughness and heart and belief, not just in themselves, but the people around them. And it kind of gets me pumped up in a way, right? And
Mhm.
so I try to channel that resilient underdog feeling when dealing with my own setbacks and really try to instill that in not only my team, but friends, family, just to keep pushing forward. That's really all you can do. Try to control the things you can and let be the things you can't control, right?
Yeah. I love that narrow focus,
Yeah.
and also just kinda a bit of that grit, like, not yet,
Yes.
I may not have figured it out yet, but
Yes.
I'm
One of
gonna
my team
keep getting
members.
back up.
Right, exact fall down 7, stand up 8. One of my team members, I don't know where he got it from, but it was especially in sales, it was like, "Get to your 10 no's," right?
Mhm.
So, instead of like, "All right, we're always waiting for a yes in sales," right? If we're reaching out on LinkedIn, email, cold calls, whatever it may be, we're always looking to get that yes, but if you're rushing to get a no, it kinda it changes your mindset, it changes your perspective of why you're doing it, and,
Mhm.
if I can get to my 10 no's, then I'm good. So, in between that, maybe you'll get a yes. After 4 no's, you get a yes, perfect. The clock starts back again. Now I'm working to 10 no's. And just it really helps you in the face of adversity when dealing in cold calling and reaching out to people who sometimes frankly just don't want to hear from you. So if you're looking forward to getting that no, it really changes your mindset as to how you approach each interaction, how you approach the day, and how you approach kind of sales in general.
Yeah, I love that threading that needle, like, whether you're talking about performance optimization, leadership, or even bouncing back from adversity or the resilience, the power of the connection coupled with your perspective taking, that mindset shift can be a super potent combination.
Yeah.
Just in that one, I hear kind of the perspective of taking care of your leader. There is that balance in the professional personal line, right? But at the end of the day, what I hear you called upon is serving as a leader in service of the humans. Like in the
Yes,
military,
exactly.
we used
Yeah.
to I learned a lot from Dr. Joe Thomas. He's a leader at the Naval Academy and talks about in the military, oftentimes success is defined by accomplishing your mission and taking care of your people. And if you do the former and not the latter, the equation falls apart, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely. Your
um,
mission changes a little
your
bit
mission
at that
shifts.
point.
It's
Yeah.
tough, right? To do that. Nonetheless, what I hear you describing in your leadership and how you can bounce back is just kind of relying on the power that comes from those connections, and then also taking ownership and taking a look at like, okay, well, how am I making sense of this? What is the
Yeah.
perspective I'm taking on it, and using that? How can you make a subtle shift so that's now get to your 10 no's, it becomes a little bit more of a propellant forward rather than, I haven't gotten my yes today,
Yeah,
which
exactly. Yeah.
I can
I didn't get my
appreciate.
yes, but I did get my 10 no's, and
I
that's what
got
I
my
was
10
shooting for.
no's. I'm
And
gonna keep
that
working.
power of connection is, especially nowadays, where everything's kinda done via
Yeah.
webcam, that power of connection is so much more important than ever. If you can get in front of a person, it just for whatever situation, if it's sales, if it's personal, if it's dating, like, if you can just get in front of a person and have that conversation, it really obviously, it helps build that connection, but it helps build you up as a person in terms of how you interact, not only with yourself, but with others.
Yeah.
I recently saw these quotes probably in the past couple months or so. One was, "I'm an accumulation of everyone I've ever met, and I'm a mosaic of everyone I've ever loved," which I thought was great. Professionally, I've taken kind of bits and pieces from every mentor and teammate that's left a mark, from cadence on how to start a call, or how to have a solid presence in leading a team or leading a room, but the lessons and the engagement and encouragement, the criticism, it all becomes a part of you. And I think, especially kind of around playing team sports too, it's a huge driver to that success. If you've had a
Mhm.
coach yell at you on the sidelines, then you can pretty much handle any aspect of criticism in business,
Yeah. There you go.
right?
The flip side of this journey is just not only how we can show up in those moments that matter, but how do we sustain that over time? And so now that you are a senior leader and you can reflect and take those lessons learned, but what keeps you going? What keeps you in the game? Are there recovery practices that you use that keep refueling you along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's funny now. Thing that keeps me grounded the most is something that I really hated as a kid, and that's yard work. I really love getting out into the yard and
Careful. I think there's an insurance company that does commercials about about our
yeah,
transition to that.
seriously, I would honestly do anything to get out of yard work as a kid, but now I spend so much time in my home office, more than I'd care to admit, looking at the computer, obviously having great conversations with different people. It's fantastic, but it's
Mhm.
really, I'm kind of stuck to my desk right here with the window right in front of me, and I'm constantly looking outside and wish I could just be mowing the lawn, or doing some sort of landscaping, or clearing out my backwoods behind my house so I can extend my lawn so I can mow it more. There's something incredibly grounding about, working with your hands, seeing intangible progress in something you've worked so hard to build, right? My
Mhm.
entire career, moving down to DC, living in apartments, not having a yard, putting a lot of focus and hard work into my career so I can get a house and build a family and have that privilege of doing yard work. But again, there's something incredibly grounding about it, and it reminds me of how far I've come, and the things that once were challenges or chores are now goals that I'm chasing. So
Yeah.
it's great to really kind of quiet your mind and just be present in the moment. It's such a drastic change from my day-to-day on the computer conversations. Just being by myself with the loud lawnmower or the chainsaw or the weed whacker, getting down on your hands and knees and pulling weeds out of the dirt. It's such a drastic thing that keeps me grounded and kind of recharges me to, all right, I did that for a while. Now I can get back to the Wi-Fi and the computer and technological conversations, things like that. So
Absolutely. There's
yeah,
the power that comes in the restorative aspect that comes from the physical activity itself, or like you said, the sense
yeah,
of
big time.
accomplishment that you can see very clearly.
Yeah,
But also, there's a lot in the literature about our connection with nature and just the power that can come by just getting outside, like go for a walk. Maybe you aren't doing the
yeah,
yard work, but just being outside, being in touch with more green than we are, like you were talking about in earlier in your career, maybe the concrete or the walls around us.
yeah, exactly.
So I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I remind everyone, like, we all are human systems, right? No matter what technological advances there are to improve
right.
efficiencies or creative designs or whatever the solutioning is, we are all under such tremendous cognitive load, even using those tools. And that cognitive load can take a toll on us. So appreciate that strategy very much.
Yeah. Give it a shot. The next time the grass is looking a little long, utilize it to go outside and mow and kind of ground yourself a bit.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
The last bit I kind of wanted to touch on as a leader and perhaps along your journey is the tool of reflection. And we talk about actions of reflection. In the military, I certainly was around many who were conducting after actions, with some companies also have formalized processes, but that they go through to debrief lessons learned from it. But I also have had a number of experience with teams, organizations where they go through that formal process, and yet then there's a gap then with any implementation or any shifts in the processes, with the people, with the technologies that are informed by those lessons learned. So whether you're an individual, you're leading a team or organization, I really come back to relating it. It's not just the intellectual exercise, like let me sit back and reflect, but how it informs how we evolve the next day and the actions we take, either perspective taking, right? An internal action, or perhaps maybe how we respond. I'm just curious about one other component when we think of high performing leaders and teams are actions of reflection. And I share back my experience in that oftentimes people have formalized processes for this, that maybe they have a debrief or an after action. But really, what it happens if there's a gap then from those lessons learned to implementation, either taking action individually with maybe internally your thoughts and like how you shift the perspective, or maybe external shifts that you're making in work processes and technologies, how you're interacting with people. But truly, it's the actions of reflection that really generate that evolution, that growth, rather than the passive. Basically, it's just instead of an after action, it becomes like an after reflection. It's like great, it's a great intellectual exercise and
Trademark that.
thinking and conceptualizing and kicking ideas around with the best of them. But
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day, unless there's actions taken, it's really difficult to kind of drive that evolution. So I just wanted to wrap on asking you to share back and how perhaps in your journey or as a leader or even in, outside of work, you've found reflective practices, or if your favorite reflection practice activity tool to be helpful, if you could share on that.
Yeah, I think the most crucial one is honestly the easiest one, and that's asking for feedback. It's
Mhm.
something that I don't think a lot of people do it or make a cognitive effort to do it, but just asking for feedback in every aspect of life, whether it's professional, whether it's, after this, I'll be asking, hey, how did I do on the podcast, right?
Mhm.
Professionally, personally, you're gonna get an answer out of it. Take what you will with that information. You need to be open to that information. Just asking the question isn't gonna suffice, but being open to the information that, whoever you're asking provides, that's really what it comes down to. So asking for the feedback, if it's on a sales call, how do you think this call went? They'll give you their honest opinion. If it's personally with your partner, asking them, am I doing everything I need to do to make you happy? Even sometimes just asking the question, especially like the one I just mentioned, sometimes at least really shows your character and shows that you're intending to do better or you're trying to be better, right? Which is 99% of the battle. And
Mhm.
I think with tools, it's such a great way, especially in my career, to utilize any recordings of any meetings that we have. So I can go and watch them back. It's not always comfortable, but it's the best way to improve. And
Yeah.
again, I'll probably be doing the same with this podcast, watching it back, but it
Yeah.
gives you the opportunity to catch your blind spots, your habits, the small things that add up, really. And I think in any field, if you're not actively seeking, kind of to your point, if you're not actively seeking ways to improve, then don't expect much improvement. It's not going to come naturally. You need to really be, again, cognizant of what you're doing, how you're working it to improve on those things. And reflection isn't just always looking back. It's about creating that feedback loop that pushes you forward. So, asking the question, taking the information given to you with open ears and an open mind, and really kind of having a conversation about that too. Perfect. So this is what I need to improve on. Okay, why do I need to improve on that? Okay, great. How do you think it's going to help me if I improve on this? How do you think it's going to help me moving forward? So kind of that constant feedback loop to help you move on and become better. It's the reflection isn't just a one-way street of, kind of sitting back and thinking about it. It's involving others as to as to how you can improve yourself and be better.
Fantastic. I very much appreciate that. And certainly your
Yeah,
emphasis on if we want to be open, sometimes the easiest way to do that is just to ask people, learn from them. What are their thoughts? What's their experience?
exactly.
And if they have that
Absolutely.
feedback for you.
I feel like I'm kind of struggling with this. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Or,
Yeah,
even if they haven't, just asking, they're going to give you their honest opinion. And just like this, it turns into a conversation. And by the end of it, you're just a little bit better. And do that enough times, you'll become great over time.
I love it. Thank you so much, Rob. A pleasure having the conversation and learning from you today. I'm very grateful for you and your time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, Amy.